We'll swing into Jenka. Oh my god, that's so many triggers. That is a lot of triggers.
Today on Commander Replay, we check out this Isshin tokens build and find out if we can kill the table before we get milled to death. Next on Commander Replay. Hey guys, there's two great ways to support the channel. All links are in the description below.
Welcome back everyone, playing some Isshin Two Heavens is One today, and today's deck list comes to us from Patreon supporter Jared. Let's take a look at this opener. It's kind of weird, honestly. Doesn't have the card draw. I'm gonna try to... It's a decent hand. I'm gonna keep it. It could get a lot worse. We've got two pieces of ramp, although two lands, maybe a little light. Doesn't have card draw. That's what we're missing. Dralnu. Oh, there's one you don't see. Gix, Yawgmoth, Praetor. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may draw a card. That's the card draw we're missing. Definitely like that. Let's play this vault thingy right here, and we'll pass like that. So this is a tokens Isshin build. I played a little bit of Isshin tokens. I have one in paper, and I also played one on the channel back when Isshin first came out. Overall, Isshin is a really strong commander. 3 mana for a 3/4. If a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger it an additional time. The power and consistency of Isshin is like kind of insane. Many people have joked that Isshin is commander on easy mode, and they're not wrong. I have definitely outramped green decks with Isshin. Sword of the Animist is absolutely insane with this commander. Because it's like it is on Aurelia, except that it comes in 3 turns sooner, right? So on like turn 4, you can be getting double lands. For Aurelia, that usually takes a little bit. You need to get to the later parts of the game before that starts to happen. Brings it back to our turn. There's a flawless maneuver. That one is super helpful. Let's play the land, play the Arcane Signet. Love to catch a land off the top next turn. Pass like that. I did just try to film a game with this. Kind of got comboed out, so it's probably not going to get shown. But in that game, I had a super aggressive start. Went 2-drop, Isshin, cast a card on 4, and basically I was looking at like almost lethal on the table, untapping on turn 5. It was going to be insane. There was an Adeline in play. There was tokens everywhere. It may not have killed like everyone, but at least one player, probably 2. But then a board wipe went off, and then someone else comboed off, so that was all very disappointing. Kind of not much happened after that. So hopefully things go a little better this game, although things are looking a little risky right now. We need to get to this thing, and hope we can draw lands and things that matter. I did have to change a couple cards in this deck. There were about 5 or 6 cards that weren't available on Magic Online. Battle Angels of Tyr, Ragavan is still insanely expensive. I couldn't find a Sky Hunter Strike Force, so I added Adriana in its place, because essentially the same idea. All the cards from the 40k set aren't available on Magic Online, so that opened up a lot of deck slots. Couple things I added in. Guild Artisan looks really good with Isshin. That's a bunch of extra mana. Sword of the Animist wasn't in here. That card's absolutely insane with Isshin. Skull Clamp wasn't in here either, which is like very notable because this is a token deck. So this will draw you a lot of cards. So I would definitely add those 3 things, and I'd probably put like at least 2 tutors for them. I mean, depending on how strong you want to make it, but there's an Armillary Sphere for opponent. That card is underrated. People don't run it, and then they get stuck on lands. I would sign up for an Armillary Sphere right here. Enlightened Tutor. Putting a Mind Crank on top. Oh my. Here comes the Mind Crank. That should make things fun. A Sword of Fire and Ice is a little awkward. Let's get this thing in. Really want to get that card draw going. Try to get back on track with our lands next turn. I haven't really seen this one, so we'll give it a read. It's Gix, Yawgmoth, Praetor, 3 mana for a 3/3. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do draw a card, pay 7. Discard X cards. Exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. You may play lands and cast spells from among them without paying their mana cost. That seems kind of crazy. Guess you have to discard X cards to do it, so there is some cost to that. There's a Burnished Heart for opponent. I actually think Fire and Ice is maybe a little bit out of place in this deck. It's okay. Because, like, in paper, you can really probably only have, like, 1 or 2 of these. I'd rather put it in the deck that can really make the best use of it. That's a deck with Double Strike. A single Fire and Ice trigger is fine. 2 triggers of Fire and Ice is very good, because that kills, like, 75% of commanders. Plus the draw 2 is very good. So, yeah, Fire and Ice is kind of weak with a single trigger. Much better with a second trigger. Manic Scribe coming in. Each opponent mills 3 cards. I think it's a Zer mill deck. What'd we lose? Lelia's okay. Boros Charm, the land I kind of wanted. Hopefully we get to another land. Hero of Bladehold is not a land. We'll just poke the Wubber here, trying to get this card draw trigger. We hit Mindcrank will trigger. Pay 1 life. There's the land, thank God. We mill 1 because of the Mindcrank. It's a Vindicate. I think I wanted that. Play the Marsh Flats. Crack the Marsh Flats. Which is also going to trigger the Mindcrank. I've always wanted to use a Mindcrank just as, like, disruption in an aggro deck. I've never done it, but I really want to. The problem is that, like, you need a lot of card draw to back it up because... What do we need? Oh, we need red. Get a Sacred Foundry. Pay the life. Get milled more, because, like, when you think about, like, combo decks, and, I mean, a lot of decks in general, there are certain cards in a deck that are much stronger than all the other cards in the deck, like Dockside Extortionist, Smothering Tide, Nyx Bloom Ancient, stuff like that. There's always, like, a couple key pieces in a deck that, like, if you can eliminate those, that deck becomes significantly worse. We'll go ahead and play the Sword right here. So, yeah, like, I've always wanted to use this one. What's the other one? Like, Altar of the Brood's okay. I think there's one more that I'm thinking about. Oh, Mesmeric Orb. Yeah, like, I've always wanted to use Mindcrank and Mesmeric Orb to just, like, throw off the combo decks while I'm doing aggro stuff. Because they are super, super disruptive. Take another quick look at this deck. I did add a few other things. I threw a Gleam of Battle in here. This card is surprisingly good in Isshin. Because Isshin can generate mana with stuff like Guild Artisan and Sword of the Animist, you actually shouldn't have a problem getting this in. And the same sort of thing, like, this card is usually too expensive for just about everything. Reasonably, you can make enough mana to actually, like, use this. Now, it's still going to be mediocre, because making 4/4s, like, is fine. It's fine. If someone's just going to combo off, it's not going to do that much for you. But, you know, if there's a bunch of creatures out there, they can block and so on and so forth. Notably, those ones don't even have Vigilance, which is also frustrating. But another card that looks really good that I hadn't really thought about is Fable of the Mirror Breaker, because that makes a Shaman that whenever it attacks, it makes a treasure token. So double up those treasure tokens. That seems really good. And then, of course, all the other modes are pretty solid. Notably, there's a bunch of differences in this deck from the one that I played on the channel a while back. And mine had a lot of enchantments in it, probably too many. But my take on tokens is that you either need, like, a lot of them, especially when you're talking about, like, 1/1s. You need a lot of them, or you need to get support for them. You need to pump them up, you need to give them some keywords, maybe make them indestructible or whatever, make it so they can attack without dying in combat, Iroas, and stuff like that. Notably, Iroas missing in this deck, too. I would add Iroas, or if you don't want to spend the price tag on Iroas, because I think he's a little pricey, even Loyal Unicorn, Dolmen Gate is probably like $8 last I looked. Maybe it's changed, but I would add some of that stuff, because you need to keep your tokens alive while you're attacking. You don't want to be, like, losing tokens to blocks, especially with something like Adeline where you don't really control where they go. That's a Signet for opponent. I didn't see what the Wubber played an Exsanguinate for a little bit. I didn't see how much. Ooh, that's the Guild Artisan. I'm going to equip this is a commander thing, right? Yeah. So that won't do anything until our commander's in play. What are we actually going to do this turn? We could cast the Mardu Ascendancy here. I'm going to wait and see what we draw, because I would actually like to get to, like, the Hero of Bladehold. Jeff has a lot of life, so we're going to poke Jeff again, although we should probably think about... Yeah, we'll try to bring Jeff back down to under 40. I was surprised last game. Like I said, I think I talked about it a little bit. Just didn't even ramp last game, but just curving out how strong this deck can be. When Sky Knight Vanguard, Isshin on 3... Adeline on 4, and untapping on turn 5 was going to have just a very, very deadly board state. Like, I didn't have an extra combat in hand, but if I did, turn 5 would have been, like, easy table lethal. There's a bunch of triggers going off, so we got a Fire and Ice. We'll shoot Kana in the face. There's an Austere Command. Come on, lands. Pay the 1 life. That's the land. Oh my god, we're getting so lucky. Finding these lands at the 11th hour. Play the Scrubland, play the Hero of Bladehold, and next turn, if a board wipe doesn't go off, something's going to happen. We'll probably play Guild Artisan and Isshin, and overall that should be pretty good. Bajukabog, whose graveyard do you want to hit? Dewubbers, yes, because he is playing the graveyard deck. Let's take a look at what our opponents are playing, by the way. First up, we've got Jenka piloting Kaalia of the Vast. One that you're probably all familiar with. It's been one of the most popular commanders in the format for over a decade. This is an Angel Tribal build of Kaalia, and one that I've actually played. The video for this will actually be coming out right around the same time as this video, perhaps in the same week even. So you guys will get a chance to see that one. I ended up filming this deck 4 times. I can't explain to you how few decks I have ever filmed 4 times. Actually, by the time this video comes out, my 1000th video will have been released. Oh yeah, that's a Kaalia with haste. Let's find out what the worst thing in their hand is. Gotta love it. Anyway, so yeah, 1000 videos should be out. And in those 1000 games, I'm thinking about the number of decks that I had to play more than 3 times just to get a usable game. It is less than 10. Like, it is so few of them. 80% of games, I get them filmed on the first game. Maybe like another 10 or 15% take 2 games. Like, maybe like 5% of them take 3 games, and just, like 1% of them take more than 3 or 4 games to get usable footage of the deck in action. And it's not anything that's really wrong with their deck, right? Like, they have the right stuff in their deck. Kaalia is just so prone to drawing the wrong half of the deck. Like, in a lot of the games I was able to get a lot of ramp and a lot of removal, couldn't find the big creature to drop in. They drop in a Sephara, by the way. Which is a pretty good one. It's not quite as bad as Avacyn, but it is lifelink, so they'll be gaining resources, which is a thing. And, I mean, it makes a board wipe a whole lot less effective as well. So, yeah, Sephara's pretty good. So, one of the things, I'll probably talk about it in the other game, but in one of the games with Kaalia, I cast... What's that end step draw card in black? I forgot the name of it. Oh, what's that? Professor Onyx. Oh, no. We doing Professor Onyx combo? Each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power. Okay. Looks like we're going to lose our card draw guy. It's unfortunate. Still have the Hero Blade Hold, which can still punch out a lot of damage. But we do lose the card draw guy, and they were doing good things for us. Even though it doesn't have, like, specific synergy with this commander, hit and draw is really powerful. There's an Ancient Tomb. That is actually a really good pickup. Play the Ancient Tomb. Play our commander. We can then go... Yeah, let's get the Mardu Ascendancy. Mindcrank gets us again. Oh, I meant to get the Guild Artisan. Well, I guess we're going to get the sword. Put the sword, put it on the Hero Blade Hold. Ooh, Zur took a punch there, huh? Zur's down to 24. Go to combat. Someone remind me that this is free. I might forget that. I don't usually run Flawless Maneuver. We'll swing into Jenka. Oh my god, that's so many triggers. That is a lot of triggers. Battle Cry's on the bottom. Mardu Ascendancy. 2 of those, 2 Hero Blade Hold triggers. God, the value. Isshin's just so good. I guess we could put 1 at the Planeswalker, 1 at the Wubber. We could put 1 at... We'll put some over at Kana. We'll put another one. Put some 1/1s at Jenka. And there's the double Battle Cry. Oh my lord. Wow. We went from 2 creatures to what? 8? It's a lot of power. Isshin's so strong. Anyway, story I was trying to tell. So I was playing the Kaalia deck, and it's that black spell that you have to cast on the end step. You draw X, pay X life. I can't think of the name of it right now. And I went X10 because I'm like, oh, surely we'll find a big creature with X10. Nope. Found entirely lands, signets, and a Psalm Simulacrum. And my luck did not really improve over the course of the few games that I played. It was just like, I had so much trouble finding the big creature. Like, even when I got the card draw, it's like I would draw into a giant pocket of lands. And it was super frustrating. Are we blowing up this Kaalia? I think we're blowing up this Kaalia. This is a Divine Visit to... Oh my god, if we play that next turn. Someone's got to have a board... they're going to need a board wipe that gets around Flawless Maneuver, is what they're going to need. What's this thing say again? We know the token part. Sacrifice the creatures, you get O+3. It seems weird that it adds toughness, does it not? I guess it keeps your tokens alive, but, you'd assume the Mardu one would be more attacking and just like, let's pump the power, right? You'd assume that's what the Mardu one does, but it's kind of strange. It was probably too strong. I'm sure that's how it started in development. They're like, yeah, that's way too good. way, way too good. Opponents are conspiring against us with removal. Let's see what they have. I think it's 2 pieces of spot removal, which is way less effective for this Flawless Maneuver. They can... Alright, Generous Gift. Gonna blow up the Mardu Ascendancy. Do I want the token? Yeah, we'll just take the token, I guess, right? It's another 3/3. It's another thing that's gonna get hit with Battle Cry. God, if we get this thing in. So ridiculous. But yeah, I did have a rather frustrating experience with the Kaalia deck. Just like, I'm like, all right, Kaalia's in. We just need a creature. Just need an exciting creature to drop in, and couldn't really make it happen. The best game of the series, I think, was game 2, and that one ended up crashing. Wasn't just running away with it, but there was this cool moment where I was playing, had Angelic Skirmisher and Lyra, and was able to do a lot with the keywords, where I was kind of fending stuff off with a combination of like Vigilance and First Strike, Lifelink on the other turns, and kind of gaining life and not taking damage from the stuff that was on board. It was kind of cool, right? It was like a very subtle thing. It wasn't just like, oh, I play this thing and win the game. It's like, all right, I've got good blockers. No one really has good attacks into me. I kind of miss like limited gameplay, honestly, where like attacking and blocking matter a lot. Necralgia, that's the one. That's the one I was trying to think of. They go X5. Chicken. Honestly, if there are 3 cards in hand, I might have gone a little deeper. Maybe not too much deeper, but I'd probably go to like 7 or 8 just to like, because there's gonna be some. What's even in here? Sarah's Emissary's in the graveyard. That's one that you want. Teferi's Protection gets milled. That hurts. Aurelia's in the graveyard. Notably, Jenka is a little light on reanimation with that deck. And that would be one of my recommendations. They have Patriarch's Bidding in there. It's funny because I know every card in their deck right now. Unless they changed anything since like yesterday. But they have a Patriarch's Bidding. They probably also need a Haunting Voyage. And probably also like a Reanimate or an Animate Dead, whichever one you want to go with. Bojuka Bog. Is that the second Bog this game? That's the second Bog this game. I don't know that I've ever seen 2 in a game. Gonna fire it right back at Jenka, so all these beautiful angels gonna go away, and let me tell you, that is painful for this deck. Very, very painful. Jukabog's a funny card. Many cards get exiled. I haven't played against a mill deck in a while. It's always fun, right? Just because, like, it's sort of that race against the clock. You're like, oh, we're gonna be able to get to them before our entire library's gone. I don't know. It creates an interesting challenge. I know a lot of people don't care for mill decks, but I don't run into them all that often, so it's always like a fun change of pace. I'll take a mill deck over just like Simic combo or something like that. Simic, I draw all the cards and make all the mana. Mill deck's way more interesting than that. They crack an Expedition map. We'll see what they get. Teleria West. Ooh, that's interesting. They don't have the double blue currently, though. Should take a look at the rest of our opponents, by the way. In the middle, we've got Dwubber piloting Dralnu Lichblower. Here's one you don't see much. 5 mana 3/3 out of Time Spiral. If damage will be dealt to Dralnu, sacrifice that many permanents instead. So obviously really bad against red decks, really bad against sort of Fire and Ice. Any sort of direct damage is a bad time for Dralnu, but it does say tap, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn equal to its mana cost. So you can get all your spells back. It's basically the precursor to Kess. I guess these days you would just run Kess. But there is something fun about Dralnu, because you really don't want it to get hit. I would say in today's day and age also that, like, you probably really don't even need to play Dralnu until the late game. Once your opponents are low on cards and you're pretty sure there's no removal, probably hold the commander until then, just because it is kind of risky. Opponent gets a Shielded by Faith for their Zur. Yeah, it's indestructible. Here's a tough call. Do you go for the life loss with Brutal? Oh man, we have so many cards to play. Would love a Ritual off the top. There is a Jeska's Will in here. If we got Divine Visitation, Brutal Horde Chief, and Adriana in, I mean, that's probably just the table's dead. But it's not so much that I want to win, I just want to see all of those things go off. Well, there's the Damnation. Time for this Flawless maneuver. See if anyone has counter magic. They do not. So our stuff survives. That's a really big problem for our opponents. Free spells! Yay! Who thought of the free spell cycle? Oy. I forget where I was talking about this, but someone mentioned to me that, like, a big reason for the speed up of Commander games is the increase in protection spells. Protection spells have gotten a lot stronger. When all your stuff doesn't die to the board wipe, you gain such a big advantage on the board. Jenkins says we had the big boys table today. Kana has expletives for WotC. Like, that is a WotC problem, right? Like, that's their problem for printing that card. Ooh, here's one I haven't seen. Falconer Adept, whenever attacks, create a 1/1 white bird with flying that's tapped and attacking. Maybe a little less exciting than the other stuff in our hand. How much mana do we have? We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 mana total. Oh, what does that mean? That's an awkward number. It's an awkward number, actually. I kind of want the Brutal Horde Chief, just I never get to use the Brutal Horde Chief. Adriana probably kills the table. Divine Visitation I never get to use either. Let's go this way. Let's go Maybe we don't want to... Let's not commit any more creatures, actually. Because if we don't kill everyone here, then we don't want to be, like, overexposed to the board wipe. We'll Ancient Tomb in the Guild Artisan, which, like, probably not the best idea, but... Mind Crank. Then Divine Visitation. This should be silly. Let's read this one more time. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life. Okay, yeah. So we just need to attack Jeff with that one. We'll send this one over to Jenka, DeWubber, Kana. Here come the triggers. Yep, those be triggers. Oh, wow. The treasures are doubled. So good. So good. Yep, definitely put a Guild Artisan into this deck. Oh, crap, I did the things out of order. I put the Battle Cry on the top like I'm not supposed to. Whoopsie. Wasn't thinking. Send one there, send one there. Shielded by Faith. Triggers a couple times. Yeah, I'll send one there, send one there. People have described Isshin as Commander on easy mode, and they are not wrong. We should not have a board state that looks like this. It's just so strong. Honestly, like, I love Isshin. It's cool. Mardu needs the help. Oh, that does kill Kana. We'll shoot Jeff in the face. Oh man, that's the Fairy's protection. DeWubber says he didn't get mine cranked. So, alright, I'm torn, right? If someone had a board wipe, I might not cast this to Fairy's protection. But then I'm also thinking about the amount of time it takes to edit these videos, and like, if everyone just dies really quickly, it's a lot shorter. Like, you're talking about saving like somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes of editing by not having to go through like turns 8, 9, and 10 of a game. Siphon Mine. There you go. We'll discard the Adriana. Starnheim Aspirant. They are on the Pray We Survive Till Next Turn plan, it looks like. Maybe they have it to Fairy? Nope, tapping their mana. Wow. Just tapping out. It is up to Jeff. I would probably let the board wipe go off because I kind of want to see the resilience of this deck a little bit. From what I saw in the last game, I think this deck is a little light on recursion. And it doesn't need a ton necessarily. But I think like maybe 1 or 2 good cards. In my particular build of it, I went for the Revelar Karmic Guide combo. Just because that's great for getting all your little stuff back. And both are good on their own. But with black, you have many, many options of reanimation. So just depends on what you want to go for. Agadeem's Awakening is kind of cool. Although maybe all the creatures are a little too clustered in their CMCs for that one. Living Death is usually good most of the time. You know what? I'm going to let that Life's Finale go. Like, I know we can play the Teferi's Protection and win with the Teferi's Protection. What is the chance that Jeff has a counter spell? He has 2 blue mana up, so maybe he does. But I'll just let that go. I am curious to see how this deck will fare now. I think we should still do all right, because we have value here with the Guild Artisan and the Sword of Fire and Ice. Namely, card draw is a super big one. I mean, Teferi's Protection's been out for, what, like 6 years now? And it's just, I've won so many games with Teferi's Protection. Maybe not necessarily in paper. In my playgroup, in my experience, people tend to be a little more interactive in paper. On Magic Online, like in the group that we play with here, Teferi's Protection usually just equals the win. Like, people don't usually have enough removal to deal with it because you're basically talking about needing some sort of instant speed board wipe usually, either to go over the top of the Teferi's Protection or to get everything once you phase back in. And people just don't tend to run that deep on removal. I was telling people earlier in chat today, Jenka was there when I was talking, and he's like, run Settle the Wreckage against me. Like, I promise you will have a lot more success if you do. Send our commander back to the command zone. Like, Settle the Wreckage and Comeuppance will get me really good. Because I almost always play decks that attack, right? So at some point. I was talking with Kristen today, too, and just like, we're talking about how strong a fog can be. Because the format tends to be so, like, drag racy. And, I mean, she described it as, like, 4 people playing solitaire, basically. There's a land. Gotta love a land. And, I don't know, I don't think she's wrong, at least some of the time. Like, there's a lot of games now where, yeah, it's just, it is 4 people playing solitaire. And so then there's some likelihood that, like if you fog them, the player after them will have to kill that player because that player has way too much on board and, you know, went for the big play. And, you know, you need to take them out before their next turn. So That stuff can definitely happen. Like, something as simple as a fog can really change the balance of a game. Let's put the sword on our Brutal Horde Chief, and we'll pass like that. So, even though I was talking crap about the sword earlier, the sword has actually been pretty solid. We shot a Kaalia, and we've drawn maybe 2 or 3 cards. Haven't kept track of exactly how many. Probably at least 3. Like I said, it gets much, much better with Double Strike. Now, thinking about all 10 swords, it probably has the biggest discrepancy between a single trigger and 2 triggers. Because, like, a Hearth and Home is still really good on 1 trigger. A Feast and Famine is really good on 1 trigger. Most of the other ones are, like, very solid on 1 trigger. And they don't necessarily become overwhelming on 2 triggers, though they are very good. Where this one goes from, like, a little underpowered to, like, pretty good. It is a very deck-dependent type card, but that's also fine because they're so expensive. I think I only have 1 of these in paper. And especially as, like, card draw's gotten better, in red particularly. I'm just like, I don't need to spend that much money just to, like, draw a few cards here and there, where going back 10 years, this was one of your better card draw options. What's the activated ability in this thing? Creatures your opponents control block this turn and choose how those creatures block. Sort of weird. I would love to get someone with that at some point, though. Kaalia coming in. Gives it haste. Yep. You know, that's interesting to think about. So, historically, I haven't run Slayer's Stronghold all that much. Where is it? There it is. Because back in the day, you never really had the excess mana for it a lot of the time. Like, if you had to recast your commander, did you have an extra 3 mana to also give it haste and vigilance? You know... Now, because of treasures, because of Sword of the Animus, and it's just easier to ramp like crazy, it's easier to have that mana to use, so I need to start using Slayer Stronghold just a little bit more than I do. Oh, what do we got? Oh no, Angel of the Ruins. Oh no. Man, I really want the treasure one. I know, is it worth it? I don't think it's worth it. I think it's fine. Makes me sad, though. On the other hand, those 4/4s would have been really helpful against the Angel deck for blocking. Just in case this game, like, extends for a while. Down to 16, definitely want to start getting some lifelink triggers with this thing. Oh, we can shoot the Kaalia again. Yeah, Sword of Fire and Ice, really good against Kaalia. This is a huge pickup for white decks and angel decks. Also, some artifact decks. Exile up to 2 target artifacts or enchantments on an ETB. White's creatures just haven't been that good historically, right? This is, like, one of the best removal creatures in white. It's a little pricey at 7 mana, but the fact that it's exile is massive, right? Just all of the white removal creatures before this were, like, so narrow, and, like, you just didn't want to run them, really. So this is a pretty big pickup. There's a lot of times when I'm playing the Angel deck that I am really looking for Angel of the Ruins, because I'm like, there's something nasty out there. I need to get rid of it. And it's nice, too, just because you can keep the creature count up instead of just having to run, like, a Dismantling Wave or some spell in that slot. And it's a creature. If it dies, you can get it back. Do it again. Man, the games where you shoot 4 artifacts and enchantments, those games usually start to tilt in your favor. Because that kills, like, all the value stuff. I'm surprised they didn't go for the sword. Went for the guild. If they go for the sword, I probably actually cast the Teferi's Protection right there, because the card draw is kind of what's going to keep us from getting stuck here. Talking to Kana in chat while waiting for opponents here, and he said he would have won that turn if he found a 4th land because he had the Mindcrank combo. So we were right to kill him. Sorry, Kana. Yeah, I know it was, I feel bad now. Like, oh man, like, it's so hard to have good games now because things just snowball so quickly, and, like, opponents tried the board wipe, and we had the free protection spell. It's just, what do you do, right? There's a Mystic Sanctuary. Getting back a Life's Finale. All right. Can we kill Jeff? I don't actually know if we have that much damage, to be honest. Well, the Life's Finale. We just have to leave up the Teferi's. I think that's the play here. Oh god, a Chroma's Will? Chroma's Will means we could probably kill some people. Cast Isshin. So if we sent both of these over to, if we send them both, that'd be 7, that'd be 9. Double Strike would kill them. We'd get 2 triggers there. We'd get 2 of these. Yeah, we don't have haste. Missing the haste, so I think we just kind of spread it right now. This one into Jenka, this one into Dweller. 4 Horde Chief triggers. That life gain is solid. That is very, very solid. Also the life loss, right? Those are powerful effects. Fire and Ice trigger. Yeah, I mean, shoot the Kaalia. We draw a Cathar's Crusade. That's a ridiculous card. So definitely next turn, unless people have some craziness. Jenka says, I love having my commander turned off by Fire and Ice. No, is that Jeff? It turns off both their commanders. Yeah, sometimes Fire and Ice is really good. Maybe I'm undervaluing this card just a little bit. I don't know. I will say it is highly variable. Same thing with Umezawa's Jite. Umezawa's Jite, like, sometimes just wins you the game by itself. That's another one that if you get 2 triggers with Jite, you're in a really good spot. Because, again, you can kill most commanders and stuff. Or, you know, the damage that you have for the following turn is insane. But, like, a single trigger of Jite can be a little underwhelming. And I don't always run it in every single equipment deck anymore because of that. It sort of depends what's going on. It has a lot of variance to it. Like if you're comfortable with that, sometimes it just goes out and wins the game for you because you're like, oh, make Aurelia like an 11-12 or something and swing both of you, give a double strike with something, and off to the races. There's something to say too that like what I do like about this Fire and Ice is that you don't want to have all of your stuff congregated into one permanent type. So like if a creature board wipe goes off, our sword still sticks around. Now, an austere command could get both of them, and that's just a risk you have to take. But, like if you run, let's say you run all creatures to draw cards, right? Bad things can happen to your creatures, so you may not get the value from them that you need, where the sword is a little bit harder to kill, and is much more likely to kind of stay out there for a turn, or at least not just get caught up in, like, just some random board wipe. Like, creatures, I mean, they die to creature board wipes, right? Like, whether they were the intended targets or not, where, a lot of times the sword can make it through unless someone's got something specific for it. Same thing with enchantments as well. Having a few things in enchantment, just gives you another avenue. It requires opponent to have, like, another piece or another type of removal. The card that I don't use that much is Planeswalkers. Same sort of thing. Like, even though, like, adding a Planeswalker to this deck might not be best in slot, it is the type of thing that's just like, it puts you on a different axis that even if some removal happens to your stuff, they probably don't get your creatures, your sword, and your Planeswalker, unless maybe it's a Farewell. But it's Farewell, get Planeswalkers, I forget. Threat diversity. That's basically what I'm talking about. Like, diversifying what you have in play so that, a single piece of removal doesn't completely wipe you out. I think about it a little bit. It's not something I think about all the time, but like, and a lot of times maybe it's 1 or 2 cards in a deck, right? Like 1 or 2 Planeswalkers for most deck is plenty. I wouldn't go more than that, especially for like an aggro deck. But it can just be nice to have something that's a little different than everything else that's going on. Opponents are trying to work out some master plan here, and they're on the he either has Teferis or he doesn't strategy. We definitely have it. Also, that 4 life we just gained might be relevant. Yeah, here's an Angel of the Ruins. I just saw Chroma's Wills are like $15 now. Should have bought more of those. Because, like, after I played it one time, I'm like, I knew immediately, I'm like, this is a really strong card. Should have bought a lot more of them. Unfortunately, didn't really have a lot of excess cash when Commander Legends came out. Definitely wish I bought 10 of them when they were like $4 or $5. It sucks that, like, when you know the card's going to be expensive down the road and you're like, should have bought it. That's a bad feeling. Had that happen quite a few times in my life. You just look at it, you're like, oh, yeah, no, this card's incredible, right? I did buy, like, 15 or 20 copies of Hearth and Home. That's the Farewell. Yeah, well, that's worth it to Teferi's protection. But yeah, I did buy 15 or 20 copies of Hearth and Home because, I'm like, 1, I can use these, and 2, I was planning to speculate on them, and, I'm like, these will go up, right? These can go in every single deck. And they haven't really gone up that much. And for a while, they were still only going down. I think I bought them around 10. Then they dropped down to like 8. I think I saw 12 earlier today when I looked. Which just strikes me as crazy. That card makes most decks better. We skip past the Farewell. Yeah, that's backbreaking. It'll be very difficult for our opponents to win now. Instant speed bounce is what they'd be looking at. Opponent plays a Nyx Lotus. For the most part, I really don't recommend speculating on cards anymore. I used to follow it a little bit. My track record in paper was always pretty spotty, but my track record on MTGO, I used to keep a spreadsheet of it, was like, I would hit about 80% of the times where 80% of the cards that I bought for speculation, I would sell with profit. So that's a pretty good rate. But with paper now, it's like, one, there are so many cards being printed that even if a card is really good, you don't know that it's necessarily going to catch on. And then the other problem is, you don't know if they're going to print another stronger card, like, literally in the next set. Because Storm of Souls got printed, and I bought, like, way too many copies of that. Because they were very cheap, and I'm like, all right, you know, for like $15, we can get a lot of these. Then, like, literally a set or two later, Ascend from Avernus came out, and I also bought a lot of those too. You know, I don't know that either of those cards will ever really, like, become expensive in any sort of timetable. Make the number of them that I purchased worth it. And they're both really good cards for white decks. White does not have Mastery Animation like that, but I don't know that it's going to matter because so many cards come out in a year that it's just hard to keep track of them. So, like, a card has to be, like, visibly insane to really make a splash. Like, it has to be the Great Henge, right? Like, the Great Henge, I don't think was ever really that cheap. Like, I think it came out, was, like, a little bit expensive, and then very quickly got to a lot expensive. It hasn't really come down at any point. And it's cool if people are into it. I just, like, I'm not into really speculating on cards anymore, and I have trouble seeing just, like, how you're not going to get just, like, screwed over one way or another, because there are so many cards printing out. Like, good cards go unnoticed. Sometimes they print a better card in the next set. Sometimes they reprint the card, like, way too soon. So, you know, there's just so many factors with just the large number of products that are coming out. When there are only, like, 5 sets a year, it makes a lot more sense. Things are a lot more predictable. You can safely guarantee that, like, if a good card comes out, it's probably not getting reprinted for, like, 2 years, give or take. And you just don't have any of those, like, safety nets anymore. It is, like, at this point, to me, it feels like straight up gambling, right? Like, before you could make educated decisions about cards that were going to be good and, you know, either buy a lot of them for yourself or buy a few, sell a few, that sort of thing. Oh god, that's a Torment of Hellfire. Our life total cannot change. A lot of times I forget that with Teferi's Protection. That Teferi's Protection does actually counter a Torment, because most of the white protection spells do not. So if we just go lose 3 life here, we should be okay. And no Teferi's and opponents would have got us. Jeff said, science for the science gods. Yep. Brings it back to our turn. There's a land. Play the land. I mean, we can ham it. We can ham it slightly. We'll play this Cathar's Crusade because it's silly. Jeff scoops. Opponents at 1. Send them. Oh god, the triggers. And they die to a life loss trigger. Yeah, Isshin can be really strong. We also drew all of our powerful cards. This is an absurdly powerful card. Teferi's is an absurdly powerful card. Like, both of those cards are generally stronger than most of the other things in your deck. We drew the Cathar's Crusade, which is also, like, a really big finisher. But we had good threats all game, too. Like, the last game that I played with this deck, I just didn't draw all that well. Actually, you know what it was? It was this Fire and Ice keeping us alive. Because we kept drawing cards with it. I mean, we probably drew 6 or 7 cards with it all game. And then we got 2 or 3 off of the Gix Yawgmoth Praetor, which, notably, this got us to those lands that we needed in the early game that we would have just been dead without. A couple things that I would add to this deck. I think I've talked about them already. I'll make a little pile here. Definitely a Skull Clamp. Definitely this Guild Artisan. Definitely a Sword of the Animist. Like, these 3 for sure. They are insane. Actually, this one too. Audacious Thief is also really good. When it attacks, you draw a card and lose a life. So it's like the legendary guy that we had, just that this is an attack trigger, so those will double up. We definitely add these 4 more optionally. You have Gleam of Battle for the big pump at the end, which I like. You could do more spell-based draw, but I actually liked what the sword was doing here because the protection and the shooting. I mean, we shot Kaalia a bunch of times. This is good threat diversity like we were talking about. That's really what this was doing here, in addition to giving us that value and giving us that card draw. You know, it wouldn't be the first thing that I'd really think about, but it actually performed very well in this game. So that's all a thing to think about. Because I'm adding 2 equipment, I personally would add a couple equipment tutors, but, you know, how many decks wouldn't I add a couple equipment tutors to? You know, that's just kind of how I build my decks and how I play the game. So I guess that is what it is. Otherwise, I think the deck's in pretty good shape. There were like a couple token guys. Legion War Boss I added in to make up for something. You can put like a Rabble Master in there. Loyal Apprentice is notably missing. That's another really good token generator. All really powerful stuff. I added a Greed just for repeatable card draw. This could be a lot of different things. Lately, for certain decks, I've been high on Greed because a lot of games now come down to card draw and who can keep drawing cards, especially if a game goes a little longer. Like, sustaining that draw is really important. Now, the life loss, be careful with that. Luckily, you do have things like the Horde Chief that can get you some life back, but these repeatable draw effects I've been starting to circle back around to a little bit more because I maybe undervalued them for a little bit. I would typically run Erebos. I hadn't been running Greed as much lately, but for like a 3-color deck, the single black I think can be a little better. Anyway, so these are the main cards that I would add. These 4 are really gonna beef up the deck. Oh, the other thing I was thinking about, I think I mentioned it too, the recursion. I would add a little bit more recursion. Doesn't need to be a ton. Pick whatever you want, right? I went the Revelar Karmic Guide route. I added a sack outlet because that's what I decided to do with mine. You could add basically any black sorcery would be totally fine. Ascend from Avernus, totally cool. Even Storm of Souls, probably fine. Lots of options, but I would add like one of those big reanimate spells just in case you're getting milled or a board wipe goes off and you lose all your stuff and whatever the case is. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.
I want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. If you want to help support the channel, vote on which decks I play next, or if you want to get some good games of Spell Table, be sure to check out my Patreon at the link below.